My brother told me I was adopted as a joke, so I decided to show him what being disowned really feels like. And trust me, I didn't hold back. Stick with me while I share my story, and if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like, and sharing it with the people you care about. My name is Ellie Bradford. I turned 17 a few months ago. We live in a quiet little town in upstate New York. That day was supposed to be about me, my birthday, but my brother Reed had other plans. We had a small party at home. My cousins, aunts, uncles, even grandma were there. Everything was going fine until Reed stood up and raised his glass for a toast. He smiled, then said, "Here's to Ellie, the best adopted sister anyone could have." People laughed. I froze. I looked at my parents. They smiled weakly but didn't say a word. Everyone thought it was a harmless joke, but something about how my mum avoided my eyes and how my dad forced a smile felt off. After the party, I went to my room, trying to shake it off, but Reed didn't stop. He followed me, smirking. "Come on, lighten up. It's not like we didn't all know already." I snapped. "What do you mean by that?" He shrugged. "You really think you belong here?" His words hit hard. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what he said and the weird look on my parents' faces. I couldn't take it anymore. Around 1 a.m., I grabbed a flashlight and snuck into the attic. There were old boxes filled with photos, cards, and papers. One box was marked 2007 Hospital. I opened it and found something that made my hands shake. A hospital bill with the name Ellison, not Bradford. Another paper, a birth certificate, not the one I'd seen before. This one said my mother's name was someone else entirely. My heart started racing. Why would this be hidden? Why was my name different? Suddenly Reed's words weren't just a cruel joke. I sat there in the dark attic, surrounded by secrets, feeling like I didn't even know who I was anymore. And that night, I made a promise to myself. If Reed thought it was funny to tell me I didn't belong, I was going to show him what it really meant to be unwanted. And this time, no one would be laughing. Ellie sat alone in her room, the papers she had found in the attic still fresh in her mind. She waited until everyone was asleep, then locked her door and turned on her desk lamp. Her hands shook as she opened the old envelope again. Inside was a birth certificate. The name printed on it wasn't Bradford, it was Ellison. Her full name read Eleanor Marie Ellison. She flipped through more papers. Hospital bills from a different town, signed by a woman named Laura Ellison. Nothing made sense anymore. The next morning, she waited for her parents to sit down with their coffee before placing the documents on the kitchen table. Travis and Marlene looked at them, then at each other. No shock, no surprise. "You weren't supposed to find those," her father said softly. "So it's true?" Ellie asked, her voice shaking. Marlene reached for her hand, but Ellie pulled it away. "We didn't mean to lie. You were our niece, your cousin, Laura's daughter. She passed away after giving birth to you. There was no one else to take you in. And you just never told me?" "We thought it was best," Travis said. "We raised you as our own. We love you." Ellie didn't feel loved. She felt tricked. She felt like a stranger in her own home. Later that day, Reed passed her in the hallway. He smirked. "Guess that makes you our little charity case, huh? The Family Pity Project." She didn't say a word. She just turned and walked to the basement. That night, she moved her mattress and a few belongings down there without asking. She didn't want to sleep under the same roof. Not really. Days passed. She kept quiet, but never stopped thinking. Every free moment she spent online, looking up the name Ellison. She searched for birth records, obituaries, anything that might tell her more about the woman who gave birth to her. A name here, a photo there. Small pieces started to come together. She wasn't angry anymore. Not just angry. She was determined. If the people upstairs had hidden the truth, she'd find it herself, without their help, without Reed's cruel jokes, without pretending she still felt like part of their family, because now she knew she wasn't. Ellie was sorting through boxes in the attic again, when she found a small photo album tucked behind a stack of old yearbooks. It was dusty and yellowed with age, but something about it pulled her in. As she flipped through the pages, one picture made her freeze. A young boy, maybe around 6 or 7, stood by a birthday cake with a big smile. He had sandy brown hair, the same freckled cheeks Ellie saw in the mirror every day, and eyes just like hers. Written in blue pen at the bottom were the words, Caleb, 2009. Her hands trembled as she held the photo closer. He looked so familiar, not like a stranger, more like a memory she didn't know she had. She had never heard of a Caleb in the family. Why was he in this house? And why did he look so much like her? That night, Ellie couldn't sleep. She sat on the basement floor with the photo in her lap, staring at it over and over. The next morning, she skipped breakfast and went straight to her Aunt Deborah's house. Someone she knew wouldn't lie to her. Deborah opened the door, surprised, but kind as always. Ellie held out the photo. "Do you know who this is?" she asked quietly. Deborah's smile faded the second she looked down. Her face went pale, and for a moment, she said nothing. "You weren't supposed to find that," Deborah whispered. "His name was Caleb. He's my brother, isn't he?" Deborah slowly nodded. "Your half-brother. Same mum. Caleb was a sweet boy. He passed away in 2010. It was hard on everyone. Why didn't anyone ever tell me?" Ellie's voice cracked. "Your parents wanted a clean start. They thought it would be easier if you never knew. But Reed, he always knew." Ellie's chest tightened. Reed knew. All those times he called her a pity project and made jokes about her being adopted. It wasn't just teasing. It was bitterness, jealousy. He had been punishing her for years for something she didn't even know. As Ellie walked home, her heart was heavier than ever. The puzzle pieces were finally fitting together, but they didn't bring comfort. They brought rage. Reed didn't just hurt her for fun. He hurt her because deep down, he saw her as the reason his life changed. Maybe he blamed her for losing attention, or money, or the family he thought he deserved. But she was done letting him play the victim while making her feel like a mistake. Now she had more than just truth. She had motive, and she wasn't going to stay quiet anymore. It was late when Ellie tried to slip back upstairs, the photo of Caleb still tucked in her hoodie pocket. The hallway was dark, but she wasn't alone. Reed was waiting. He stepped out from the shadows near the stairwell, arms crossed and jaw tight. His eyes weren't playful like they usually were when he teased her. They were cold. "You need to stop," he said quietly. "Dig any deeper, and you'll ruin everything." Ellie stood still. "What am I ruining, Reed? The lie you built around me. You were never supposed to know," he snapped. "You think this family just magically had room for you. Everything changed when you showed up." There it was, the truth. His voice wasn't angry. It was bitter, poisoned by years of jealousy that he could never hide, only dress up as jokes. Ellie didn't speak, but the silence brought memories crashing back. Reed crying when his favorite gaming console was sold. Reed sulking when their parents skipped his school play. Reed storming out the night Ellie got surgery, the night their dad said, "We used your college fund." Ellie needed it more. It had always been there, the way Reed looked at her like she didn't belong. And now she knew why. He didn't see her as a sister. He saw her as the reason he lost things. Ellie clenched her fists. For so long, she had tried to belong, to earn her place, but no more. She wasn't going to shrink herself to keep Reed happy. He had made it clear she was never welcome in his world, and now she didn't want to be part of it either. But instead of yelling back, Ellie nodded slowly and walked past him. She wasn't going to argue. She was going to outsmart him. Reed thought she was weak, thought she'd cry and give up, but Ellie had seen behind his mask. The fake smiles, the sarcastic tone, the smug jokes, all of it covered up the truth. Now, she had the truth, and she was going to use it, not to fit in, to take back everything that had been stolen from her. Ellie started smiling again. She laughed at Reed's jokes, sat with him during dinner, and even offered to help with errands. She acted like nothing had changed, like the truth hadn't broken her. And Reed, too proud to see the shift, believed it. He thought she'd dropped her little investigation, that she'd gone back to being the quiet, grateful girl who stayed out of the way. She even apologized. "I was being dramatic," she told him one evening, her voice soft and eyes low. "I guess I just needed attention." Reed smirked, like he'd won. But behind Ellie's calm smile, the real game had just begun. She started spending more time with Jenna, Reed's girlfriend. They worked on homework together, hung out in Ellie's room, and shared stories about their families. Jenna opened up quickly. She liked Ellie's honesty and calm energy, and Ellie listened carefully. It didn't take long before Jenna started mentioning how Reed had been stressed about money, how he told her his parents were stingy with tuition help, how he sometimes borrowed from her and never paid back. Ellie played innocent. "That's weird," she said. "Didn't Mum and Dad help him with college stuff?" She already knew the answer. Late at night, while everyone slept, Ellie crept into the office downstairs. She had learned where the important papers were. She went through bank statements, tuition payments, even emails on the shared family computer. Slowly, she pieced it all together. Reed had received more help than anyone had ever mentioned, more than Ellie ever got, even after her surgery. Thousands of dollars had been given to him, and yet, he kept saying he had nothing, because he didn't. He'd gambled most of it away. Ellie found proof: money transfers from Reed's account to online betting sites, urgent emails begging for extensions on bills, and even a hidden credit card balance their parents knew nothing about. She saved everything: printed copies, screenshots, a private folder on a USB drive hidden behind a loose tile in the bathroom. Ellie wasn't ready to strike. Not yet. This wasn't about shouting or making a scene. It was about letting the truth do the damage for her, letting Reed's own lies crash down on him when he least expected it. He wanted her to stop digging. Instead, she was planting the seeds. And when the time came, they would grow into something he couldn't run from. Ellie smiled brightly when Reed mentioned his 20th birthday. "Let me plan it," she offered, her voice light and cheerful. "You deserve something big this year." Reed raised an eyebrow but shrugged. "Sure, whatever. Just don't make it lame." She laughed along with him, but her mind was already moving fast. This was the moment she'd been building toward, the perfect time to let everything unfold. Over the next few weeks, Ellie threw herself into the party preparations. She booked the local community centre, picked out decorations, and created a guest list. She invited Reed's closest friends, extended family, and even Jenna's parents, conservative, well-dressed people who always smiled politely but kept their distance from the Bradfords. Reed didn't notice anything strange. In fact, he was impressed. "Didn't think you could pull something like this off," he joked. "Guess you're finally useful." Ellie just smiled. She spent her nights carefully curating an old family scrapbook, something she told everyone was a sweet birthday surprise. Inside the album, she added photos of Reed as a child, smiling at Christmas, holding trophies, blowing out candles. But between those pages, she inserted the real truth: printouts of his gambling records, screenshots of emails where he begged for money, bank statements showing how much he had received and wasted, documents proving Ellie's birth name and her past. Everything Reed wanted buried was now pressed between glossy photo sleeves. On the last page, she placed a copy of a message from Reed, sent years ago, where he called Ellie a pity project and swore she'd never be real family. The day of the party came quickly. The room buzzed with laughter, music, and voices. Reed soaked in the attention, shaking hands, cracking jokes. He didn't notice Ellie slipping the scrapbook onto the center table, right by the cake. It wasn't a loud move, no announcement, no warning, just a quiet gift sitting there, waiting for curious hands. And one by one, they opened it. Ellie watched from the corner, sipping her drink. She saw the shift, the smiles faltering, the whispers growing louder. Reed still didn't notice, but soon he would. The room dimmed as the projector screen lit up. Reed stood in the center, grinning, arms crossed, expecting a glowing tribute. Ellie tapped her glass gently for attention. "Before we cut the cake," she said sweetly, "I put together a little something for Reed. A memory video, just a few moments from over the years." Applause rippled across the room. Reed gave a mock bow and chuckled. "Better make me look good, Ellie." The video started with soft music and childhood photos. Reed riding a bike, blowing out candles, hugging his mum. People smiled, and Reed looked proud. Then the music stopped. The next photo showed a screenshot of a bank transaction, $3,000 withdrawn from the parents' account. Another followed, and another. Confused murmurs began. The screen changed again. This time, an email from Reed to a friend. "They gave me the money for college. I'm putting it all on the game tonight. Easy double or nothing." Reed's smile dropped. "What is this?" he muttered. The video continued. A recording of Reed's voice played. "Ellie's not even really one of us. She's a pity case, and she's lucky I let her sit at the table." Gasps spread through the crowd. Jenna, seated near the front, stood up slowly. Her parents stared at her in shock, eyes wide. The next clip was a photo of Ellie's birth certificate, proof of her true name. Then an email from Reed to Jenna. "Don't trust Ellie with anything real. She's too emotional to matter." Jenna turned to Reed, her face pale. "You said you loved her like a sister," she whispered. "You lied to me." "Jenna, wait!" Reed stammered, but she was already moving, pushing through the crowd and out the door. Reed's friends shifted away from him, whispering, some shaking their heads. The room was dead silent. His parents, Travis and Marlene, sat frozen, their expressions unreadable. Ellie stood near the doorway, calm and steady. She walked toward Reed, who looked completely stunned, helpless. "You always said I didn't belong," she said quietly. "So I gave you what you wanted. Everyone knows the truth now." "Ellie, please!" He reached for her arm, but she stepped back. Now we're even, she said, then turned and walked out of the room, leaving Reed standing alone, humiliated, in the middle of his own party. Reed had always thought he was untouchable, the golden child, the one who could never fall out of favor. But after Ellie's birthday party expose, everything changed, fast. Their parents didn't yell, they didn't cry. They just sat him down 2 days later and handed him a manila envelope. Inside was a printed list of every lie, every transaction, every disappointment. Reed tried to talk his way out of it, but Marlene's face was cold, and Travis didn't even look him in the eye. "We can't keep helping you," Travis said flatly. "You gambled away your future, and you dragged this family with you." "You mean her future," Reed snapped, pointing toward the kitchen where Ellie sat silently with a book. "She earned everything she has," Marlene said. "You lost everything we gave you." By the end of the week, Reed was packing his bags. No more tuition, no more monthly deposits. Jenna had already dumped him. She didn't even return his last message. And when he tried to explain it all to his friends, most of them had already stopped answering his calls. He found a small one-bedroom apartment on the edge of town, paid for by a last-ditch loan from an old friend. It smelled like mildew, and the water ran cold in the mornings. Still, it was all he had. A month later, he called Ellie. "Hey," he said, "I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need help, just to get through this month. Please." Ellie sat on her bed, looking out the window. She'd just received her acceptance letter from a college in Colorado, funded entirely by the small inheritance left to her by her biological aunt. Something Reed never knew about. "I can't help you," she said calmly. "You made your choices. So did I." "Ellie, please. You told me I didn't belong," she said quietly. "Now you get to feel what that's like." She ended the call. As she packed a new suitcase for her new life, Ellie felt something unexpected. Not joy, not victory, just peace. Ellie sat on a park bench just outside Albany, her hands trembling slightly as she waited. A woman in her late 40s approached, kind eyes, soft features, and a familiar curve to her smile. "Ellie," the woman said gently. Ellie stood. "Linda." They embraced, a little awkward at first, but warm. Ellie hadn't known what to expect when she finally agreed to meet her biological aunt, Linda Ellison, the woman whose name had appeared on birth records and letters buried deep in the attic. "I've waited 17 years for this," Linda said, her voice cracking. "I wanted to be there, but after your cousin Caleb died, everything fell apart. Your parents, Travis and Marlene, made it clear. If I pushed, I'd never see you. I didn't want to lose you twice." Ellie felt a swirl of emotion, sadness, anger, a strange relief. "They told me it didn't matter, that it was better if I never knew." Linda nodded slowly. "I believed that for a while too, but not a day passed that I didn't think of you. You were just a baby. After Caleb's accident, I didn't have the strength to fight harder, and I regret that." Later that day, Linda took Ellie to a quiet cemetery in a nearby town. They stopped in front of a small grey stone that read, "Caleb Ellison, 2002 to 2009, always smiling, always shining." Ellie knelt down, running her fingers across the engraved letters. "The boy in the photograph, her brother. I remember pieces now," she whispered. "A blue toy truck, someone singing to me at night. I thought it was a dream." Linda smiled sadly. "That was Caleb. He loved you." They sat in silence for a while, the breeze rustling through the tall grass. Ellie stared at the grave, feeling the weight of every lie. Every year she'd lived in someone else's story, but she didn't feel broken. "I used to think family was about blood," Ellie said, her voice steady. "But it's not. It's about truth, about respect, about knowing when to walk away from people who hurt you, even if they raised you." Linda squeezed her hand. "You're stronger than I ever was." Ellie looked up at the sky. For the first time in a long time, her chest felt light. She had been betrayed, hidden, manipulated, but she had found her way to the truth, not out of vengeance, but out of the need to reclaim herself. Boundaries, she now understood, were not walls to keep people out. They were lines that protected what mattered most: her peace, her identity, her future. The house looked smaller than Ellie remembered. Maybe it was the weight she had shed, not from her body, but from her heart. She stepped through the front door quietly, her footsteps soft against the hardwood floors that once echoed with family dinners and arguments that never made sense until now. Her parents stood in the living room. Marlene wrung her hands. Travis looked like he hadn't slept. No one said anything at first. "I'm just here to get my things," Ellie said. Marlene opened her mouth, then closed it again. Maybe she wanted to apologize. Maybe she didn't know how. It didn't matter anymore. I forgive you, Ellie said gently, but I can't be part of this family anymore. I needed you to be honest. You weren't. And I'm not going to spend my life trying to fix something that broke me. Travis looked away. Marlene's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't reach for her daughter. Ellie didn't expect her to. She moved upstairs slowly, taking only what mattered: some books, her art supplies, a few childhood keepsakes that were truly hers. In Reed's old bedroom, the air felt stale. The trophies on the shelf were dusty, untouched. She walked over to the desk and placed a small photograph face down. It was Reed's baby picture, one of the few he'd always kept close. Taped to the back was a note in Ellie's handwriting. You wanted me gone. Now I am. Enjoy the silence. She didn't slam the door. She didn't yell or cry. She just left, quiet, certain. Outside, the sky was soft and grey. Her car was packed and waiting. Her new life was waiting. As she pulled out of the driveway, she didn't look back, not even once. Somewhere inside the house, Reed would find that photo, and maybe, just maybe, he'd feel the echo of what he'd thrown away. But Ellie wouldn't waste time wondering. She had places to go, people to meet, a future that finally belonged to her. He said I wasn't really family, so I gave him what he wanted and took everything else with me. Do you think Ellie made the right choice by walking away from the only family she ever knew? Or should she have stayed and tried to rebuild what was broken? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd really love to hear what you think. And if stories like this speak to you, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss one.